Hey, what's going on? I thought today we could talk about mom guilt because it's so incredible for me to try to even put it into words that it's something that we all feel in different scenarios, right? And in different, sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, and then yet we all have very different circumstances, right? So it's like, if you're a working mom and you have to go away for work, you feel bad for working. If you're staying home and perhaps maybe you're thinking, gosh, if I went to work, would our family be able to afford more, right? And that's a bigger scale. And then, I'm one of those people that I feel mom guilt all the time. But what doesn't make sense to me is that here's the thing about guilt, right? We feel guilty when we do something wrong. Yet I feel like we feel mom guilt when we're not doing anything wrong, right? I feel this mom guilt at this essence of even when I have to take a shower, right? Where I'm like, oh gosh, maybe the emotions are high, maybe it's not a good time for me to step back, maybe it's not right. And same with my work where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be away from my kids all day. I need to make sure I'm working during early mornings or really late at night. But it doesn't make sense that I feel guilty about these things, right? I struggle very much with feeling guilty. Like I don't like the feeling. I feel very icky sticky about it. It feels very gooky wookie. Like I just don't like it. I do my very best not to do anything wrong, essentially, because I don't like the feeling. And I know, hey, if I don't do anything wrong, if I don't screw anyone over, I won't feel that way. And so I really do try my best to do well by others. And then, I think on top of that, right, I've talked about this before, but I have a lot of people pleasing in me as well. And so I'm battling all of these things. So I was sitting down, I'm like, why is it that we all feel mom guilt? Yet most of the occasions, right, it's for things that we shouldn't. And so I went through, wrote a few notes, because I thought, hey, let's start the discussion and chit chat about it, right? Because we're not doing anything wrong, yet we feel for it. I do know it's similar to the intrusive thoughts that are meant to be there for risk aversions, right? So it's like, hey, we think these things, therefore we are more careful in certain situations to protect our children or ourselves, our family. And so I think in a way, it's like a natural dilemma battle inside, as very nurturing human beings. We grew these babies inside of us for such a long time. We can sense their emotions and feelings. And so, of course, I think in a way, in our heart, we want to be with them all the time. But it's hard because you got to buy blueberries and blueberries are expensive. And it's like, okay, well, we got to work to pay for that. And then other things it took me a long time to get to a place where, I'd go weeks without showering or changing clothes or any, I was really in the slumps. And think about it now, logistically, I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But I know when I'm in it, I'm like, oh, I can't take a shower right now. Oh, I want to go get a haircut. My hair's just falling down and I'm like, I can't get a haircut right now. I need to make sure I'm putting the money towards other things. I need to make sure I'm putting my time into other things, right? So it's like weighing out those options. But some of them don't make sense. So I thought, okay, let's sit down. Here's some thoughts I was thinking about in regards to mom guilt points. And then I was also brainstorming of ways we can get past certain things, right? Because we shouldn't feel guilty for things we're not doing wrong. So let's talk about it. Why do we get mom guilt? One of the biggest thing I think for me is the unrealistic expectations, right? So the social media, the norms, the personal pressure that creates the unattainable standard of what it is being a perfect mom looks like. Because some of the accounts I follow, and these moms are doing it all, right? Somehow they've got the natural sourdough going, they've got 5 kids, they're all doing all of this stuff, everybody's well behaved, everyone is having a good time. Then they're taking a trip to Disney, taking a trip here, then they're doing this, and I'm like, gosh, I want to have the finances to be able to do that, I want to have the time to be able to do that, and I want to have my anxiety put in a bag, because I know I'll still be carrying it around, but I don't want it to be up front. I was thinking something about the blessings in disguise, and I was just like, God, can we just have more blessings without the disguise this year? Can we just can we have the fun without the anxiety? Can we have the fun without the intrusive thoughts? But our phones are with us so often, and of course we're scrolling. I find a lot of inspiration on there. I find some answers for certain things on social media. But it's hard not to compare because there's so much going on. I think I remember last year I was scrolling through, and this was around Christmas time, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, some of these things are so unrealistic, right? The restock this, the restock that. I watch it and I'm like, ding, 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 like, right? You start counting the dollars of all of it adding up. It's like, man, whether it's like the skincare nighttime routine or the everyday or the stocking the fridge or stocking the pantry, I'm like, this is so unrealistic and unachievable and almost unapproachable, right? Like, it doesn't seem, I felt like giving up at a certain point because I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even know how I would get to such a level. And so I think in a way I wanted to start posting my everyday vlogs where it's like, sometimes we read, I clean up 15 times a day, maybe we do a bath, maybe we do a popsicle, maybe, you know, it's like these random things. But same with the workout routine. Somebody asked, hey, what's the workout routine? I posted on my Instagram, right? It's 30, 30, 30. It's 90 seconds a day because I can actually get to it. I haven't carved out that time to, you know, feel like I deserve to go to the gym, right? I have mom guilt to go to the gym. And so I'm like, okay, what can I do? What's approachable? I know I can do 90 seconds a day. I know I can get 90 seconds a day. It might not be consecutive. It might be 30 here, 30 here, 30 here, but I can get it done. A lot of times, like pasta's cooking, I'm doing it. If we're doing screen time, I'm doing my squats. But I'd love to, you know, just show the real things, right? We drink our coffee at home, we drink our tea at home, we make our things at home. We're not out every day. We just can't afford that. And I think there's others that are like that, but sometimes I just see things and I'm like, man, how are you guys doing that? And so I think one of the things is obviously, right, unrealistic expectation, then the comparison trap, right? So seeing other moms, it seems like they're doing it all, it makes us question our own decisions, right? Because I'm like, I've seen the moms and they get so much done that I envy, that I'm like, oh my gosh, you went and you wrote a book and then you went and did a talk and then you did a thing. And I'm like, how? You know, I'm with my kids all day. And so it's hard for me to go to the gym. It's hard for me to go and get a haircut. It's hard for me. And I just envy. I'm like, how do you find that time? How do you do it all? And then I start comparing, right? And there's differences in our circumstances, because some of the moms, they have older kids, maybe they're in activities, right? Maybe they're in a soccer practice, or maybe they're at school, maybe they're in swim class, and so they have that time to do other things, which is so wonderful, right? But I think that's taken out of the equation so often, is that we're in different situations, right? There's single moms, there's moms with a village, there's mom without a village, there's with a partners, there's with kids at home, there's moms who are working at home, there's moms who are working at home, right? So it's like we all live in these very different circumstances. So what's possible within our situation looks so different for everybody. Yet when we see it, we compare it as though we're on the same thing, but we're not doing the same thing, right? Like, because I've had some mom question me, they're like, I had a mom who was commenting, and she's like, how do you do it? You know, how do you do it? Do you have help? Do you have a nanny or something? Do you have a housekeeper? And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish. It would be so nice to have a housekeeper, right? But I find it silly because with my little daily vlogs, I try to make it, kind of hold myself accountable with the timestamps of like what I'm doing. So I was like, when did I have a housekeeper? Between like 6:19 and 6:22 on my timestamps, like, because I want to show, hey, I'm in here cleaning, and then I'm running here, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, which I think is very similar to a lot of mothers at home, right? It's like we're constantly needed. I'm learning how not to always be busy, because it seems like I'm always doing something. But it's tough, right? It's tough. But so somebody was like, they're like, do you have this and you have that? And I'm like, I wish. But I know some people do, and that's wonderful, right? They gotta go to it, but I need to remember that I can't compare myself to that. Love and responsibility. So of course, mom, I think we feel guilty often from love, right? So we want to do the best for our kids, and what we often think the best is to be with our kids 100%, because essentially from the very birth, and when we start holding them and we help them through, we know their every need while they're still nonverbal, right? So there's a lot of nonverbal communication that happens with our kids for such a long amount of time, right? Let's say a year, if we're lucky to stay home with our kids for a year, if you don't have to go to work or return, right? And some people want to return to work. They need that break. And I think for some people, it makes them better parents, right? Because you come back refreshed, you had some time away with the grown-ups, you got a ride to work, you listen to some music, you come back a little bit anew perhaps. And so depending on your situation, you got to figure out what works best for you. But I think the guilt comes in when we try to figure out what is the best plan and what does that look like? Because I think even if we take into consideration, like, okay, so what was your example, right? What was your parents like? Or when we were growing up, that was such a long generation ago with so many different things that have changed that I don't know if we have that many great examples in front of us right now of what parenthood, motherhood looks like in our time. Right? And that's hard. There's the cultural and generational influence, right? So certain expectations are passed down. I feel like I grew up with if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean kind of a thing. It's like if I'm not doing anything, I should be doing something, right? And when I was little, my mom and grandma, I grew up in Russia and we didn't have very many things. We didn't have things at all. And so there was a lot of chores and a lot of things to do just to make life kind of keep going. And so there was always laundry to iron, there were sheets to iron, everything, and my mom learned from my grandma and I learned from my mom. And prior to that, there wasn't a sense of like, the only family role model situation we would see would be on the television. Right? So the only thing that kind of knew is either what was passed down to them, or once TVs were available, it's like, what does the family structure culturally look like on TV? And so we would almost romanticize that as being the norm or the lifestyle, right? And then now, instead of the TV, it's the influencers that we see online. There's like, hey, it's supposed to be like this, it's supposed to be like that. And same with the generational influence, I think, within parenting itself, right? Where I think the big discussion is punishment, right? Whether it was done to you or not, and how was it done? Or were you forced to go into isolation to solve problems? I was. And so now I do tend to run away. So when there's an issue, I don't want to put my conflict on anyone or ask for any help. I try to separate to resolve it, which I don't think is the healthy thing. I think we should talk to people, and I'm working on it. But I know it stems from my childhood where I was asked because it was so nice. I was forced to be in isolation, right? And learn how to solve my problems on my own. I felt like, hey, if I'm not acting happy or properly, I can't be welcomed back into the group setting. And so learning from how we grew up and how can we change it if we didn't like it, right? And so what does that look like to you? What does that look like to anyone? And so then I wrote down some notes of, we're not doing anything wrong, so let's let go of this guilt together. So here are a couple of notes. I wrote, kids need imperfect moms, right? They need love. They need attention and affection, but they don't need perfection. And I think this is so, so, so important, right? Because if we never show our kids how to mess up and recover, the kids will almost subconsciously think that, oh gosh, I've never seen my mom mess up. I can't mess up either. And we don't want that pressure for our kids, right? We want them to know, hey, if you mess up, that's all right. Let's recover together. Let's learn how to recover. And so our kids, they need to see us in certain situations, if we feel frustrated or upset, and how do we recover? How do we talk about our feelings? Do we say, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now. I just need a few minutes to focus. Hey, you know what? This is really new to me. So this is going to take a little bit of time. Let's work through this together, right? And so naming those emotions, going through it, taking the time, so they actually have an example in front of them saying, hey, it is literally okay to do things not perfect, because nobody can. There is no perfect way to do them. So they need to see that example, because if they don't, the only possible trajectory of that is, oh, I must be perfect, because they wouldn't even know or have a chance to practice or see it as an example or be modeled of how you actually handle conflict, handle emotions, solve things, right? Another thing is, I wrote, guilt doesn't equal growth, which I think somewhere in there I really struggle, where it's like, I think I saw a reel where I was talking about, we're all striving for these non-existent trophies where it's like, did the most laundry, swept kitchen every day, it's like, and perhaps it's from our generation, right, where when we were growing up, our mothers showed us that we must be doing all of these things, right? And so we also want to be doing all of these things. We feel like we have to, we feel like we're required. But feeling guilty doesn't mean you're failing, right? It's a signal that you deeply care, and it's a reflection point, not a verdict on your growth, on your worth. So guilt doesn't equal growth. And I think that's an interesting point to kind of really dive deep and explore. Okay, if I'm feeling guilty, that doesn't mean that I'm failing, right? It's at a point where it's saying, okay, let's stop, let's reflect. Why am I feeling this way? How can I regroup? How can I have communicated a little bit better? How can I set better expectations, right? With your kids, with your spouse, saying, hey, I really need this break, I really need this time, because nobody knows until we tell them. Modeling real life, I think, is important. So when kids see moms balancing, prioritizing, and making mistakes, they can learn about resilience, boundaries, and problem solving. So we need to model it, and we need to model it daily so they can also learn to do it, because if not, they won't be equipped for life. And life is full of being resilient. It's full of opportunities to solve problems and move forward, right? And so this is our chance, this opportunity to show them we might not know how to do it correctly, but let's try, right? I'm trying to work on like, hey, I'm gonna try my best today. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, did I do my best? Maybe not. Let's try again tomorrow. Tomorrow's another again to try again, or in the afternoon, hey, you know what? Morning didn't go so well. Let's try again, let's try again, let's try again. Because the thing is, things are hard, but we can do hard things. Things are so hard. Parenting is hard, motherhood is hard, working is hard. There's people in other countries who are facing so many other things, right? World problems are really actually going on. And so things are hard. And so taking the time to say, okay, what am I looking at in this situation and how can I fix it? And so then I wrote down some notes on how to work through mom guilt. So reframing the thinking, right? Shifting the narrative from I should be doing more to what I'm doing is enough. And replacing that guilt-driven thoughts with self-compassion, because we need that grace for ourselves, right? Because what you're doing is enough. You are enough. You're doing the best that you can, and I applaud you for it. Another thing is focusing on the big pictures, right? So asking yourself, like, will this matter in a week, a month, or a year? Because most of the guilt triggers don't have long-term impact, right? It's like there's so many things that kind of happen, and it seems so, to me personally, when it's that mom guilt, to me it feels like the end of the world, right? It's like, I didn't do this and now that's it. It's like, well, what's it? What's it? What is that? No, your life will keep going and your kids will love you and you are doing your best, and we need to give ourselves grace, and self-compassion instead of feeling like I'm not good enough, right? Setting realistic priorities, I think, is important. So not everything has to be perfect, and create good enough checklists. I think somebody wrote a very cool thing instead of a to-do list. It was like, gosh, I forget the phrasing, but it was like already done list. Because it's important to reflect on the things that we've done. Right? I saw a really cool analogy about a plant growing, right? And for the one leaf, it's so hard to grow that one leaf. But if you look back, that leaf has been growing for such a long time, and each leaf, it took time. But it's important to look back and see, whoa, you've been growing for a really long time. To look back at that and say, hey, I'm doing good. And then something else I wrote about was that the burnout, right? Because I think, or some things that we can do to prevent the burnout. Because not only are we tired, we're sleep deprived, right? But then the mom guilt comes in. So it's like, together, if you put all of that in a mixing bowl and mix it up, it's like, of course, we're not going to feel like we're ever doing good enough. And that's not fair for us to think. It's not fair for us to feel that way, because of course that's going to seep out into our communication with our partners and kids and ourselves, and that's not fair. So here's some things I wrote down that I want to focus on, but I want to give myself grace if I don't, right? Because it's hard. It's really hard to step forward out of the mom guilt, people pleasing, and the back burner that you've set yourself on, and start making these actual choices. And so it's okay as well. So for personal notes, I wrote, schedule time for yourself, even 15 to 20 minutes for self-care or recharge you emotionally and physically. So for me, those workouts that I do, I physically need to get some sort of a physical strain out, because I have too much energy, and then I feel like I didn't do anything done, right? Whereas if I get that workout in, I'm like, hey, I got stronger today. No matter what else, I got stronger today. I feel like today I gained another day of my life because I feel stronger, I feel better, right? And for my personal note, I have it, remember that it's not selfish, but it is necessary, because your time for you to reset your emotions, your physical needs, to work out or shower, anything, it's not selfish, it is necessary. And it took me a long time to figure this out, and I still often forget about this, but the whole idea of how our kids don't really understand time concept, and I think it's often seen through a lens of like, oh, your kids don't know, if it's been half an hour at the playground or 5 minutes or an hour. To them, it's just fun, and it is. And same goes to when, if you're gone for 5 minutes recharging or 30 minutes, if you have somebody who can, hey, help the kids, if the dad's there, the grandma, anybody, right? So if they're in good hands, your kid actually won't know for how long you've been gone. They're just gonna, either they've missed you a little or they've missed you a lot. But they don't, if you're like, hey, what I struggled with, I was like, I can't take a 30-minute shower right now. Maybe I can step away in the kitchen for 5 minutes and drink my tea, but I can't take a 30-minute shower. And essentially, they're the same. Because for kids, they're either having fun or they're not having fun. But let's say you went for 5 minutes because you think they're going to be quick. If they're not having fun, those 5 minutes might seem like an hour to them. But if you go for half an hour, this isn't it, right. It's just like, which I think planning the activities or finding good screen time things or lunch, or we like to do things nearby. It's like, hey, if you work on this, I'm going to work on this. It can be helpful, right? So it's like, hey, if they're already having fun, it doesn't matter how long you take. This is a personal one, but hopefully it's helpful. Ask for and accept help. I very much struggle to ask for help, and I struggle even more accepting help. I'm not sure exactly. I think it stems from very many different things, right? How I grew up, how I see things. It's like, oh, we're supposed to be able to handle it all. We're supposed to be able to do it all. And I think in a backwards way, I see it as, if I'm not doing it all, I'm not doing enough, therefore I'm not good enough, which doesn't even make sense. And I try to think of this one in a way of like, if my daughter, when my daughter is a mom, when she's got the kids running around, I cannot, she speaks so highly of motherhood. She's like, I can't wait to have babies. I want all these babies. She wants to have twins. She wants to have quadruplets. She's like, what if I have 19 babies? I'm like, sweet girl, have as many babies as you want. I'm going to be right there to hold them, to play with them, to do activities. So you can shower. I'll give them baths. I'll make meals. I'll do whatever it is. I want to be your 100% village, and I can't wait for that time. And that's why I really want to make sure I take good care of myself. But in that situation, I'm like, oh my gosh, when my daughter is a mom, I'm like, go take a shower, go to the gym, go whatever your things are, go, right? Maybe with the dad, hey, let the kids stay home. Let's go have a girl day. Let's go get some macaroons and a crepe. Let's go find a French bakery somewhere, right? And encourage her to do these things and be there for her, and encourage to tell her that, hey, it's okay. But something that I lack right now, but I want to move forward in, is also setting that as an example, which I struggle. So I want to make sure that when she's growing up, she's not feeling like she needs to do it all. And so asking for help, accepting help, and I want to make sure I mention this, that asking for help and accepting help doesn't make you less of a mom, but it does strengthen you, because it strengthens you emotionally, physically. Your cup is going to get more full. You're going to have more to pour out, but it's hard to start doing it, but it's important to. Practice saying no. I struggle with this so much when it comes to work, to things, because if anybody asks me anything, I'm like, yes, absolutely yes. And I'll tire myself out, and then I'm like, I'm so tired. And it's like, yeah, you never said no. And I think in a way, because my daughter's growing up, I'm like, gosh, can't she see I'm so busy? Can't she see she's asked me to do this 100 times already? And I've said yes, can't, and they're like, wait, no. She has no idea, essentially, that she shouldn't or should be doing, because all she knows is I've always said yes. So why would it be different, right? So if I don't set boundaries, how could she expect anything different than what it has been? And that's hard, right? Because we're so used to like, oh, of course we do this and we do that and we do this. And so slowly delegating certain things. Oh, can you do that on your own? Can I help? Let me know if you need help. Why don't you try it on yourself today? And then let's see if I can help you after. Those kinds of things. Another one's focus on quality, not quantity. I think this is so important, because I think for a long time I was like, I need to be, if I'm here all day, I need to be spending all of my time with my kids. But I get really worn out. and I'm tired, because we play pretend for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I do it because I know there's so much learning in it, and each time it's like I see my daughter's wheels are spinning. Same with my son now, right? It's like he's putting things together. We learn certain words. We do one word a day almost, right? We focus on in. We do diapers in the trash. Now he throws his diaper in the trash. I'm like, Ezzy, where did diapers go? Dirty diaper in trash, right? And so setting those expectations, trying them again. But I thought, hey, I need to spend all of this time, but it's not fair for them to see me so worn out. It's not fair to me. So I think quality versus quantity time. So instead of playing for 4 hours, hey, what if I dedicate this 1 hour and I go full in, right? The costume, the thing, I'm flying. Wow, you're healing me. We're doing it. We're playing. It feels so realistic. That is so much more joyous for our kids and ourselves than being so tired of it, doing the pretend play and monotone with that passive aggressive almost tone of like, sure, of course I'll do it. It's like, you're not doing anyone a favor with that attitude. This is something for me to work on. So it's like, hey, quality over quantity. I saw somewhere it's like focus on those waking moments, right? Being so gentle with them. I think if we're accepting of people who say, oh, don't talk to me until I have my coffee, right? So it's like, oh, so you wake up cranky, maybe grumpy. If that's the case, if we can allow and be graceful with you as an adult, we should be very graceful with our kids when they wake up and maybe they're a little bit shorter, right? Maybe they're a little bit more straightforward and direct. We shouldn't take that personally. They're just waking up too. And so being gracious in the morning, maybe a little touch point in the afternoon, and right at bedtime to make sure, hey, let's wrap it up in a really good, positive day for everybody. Celebrate little wins, so acknowledging your daily victories. So going through the bedtime or making a little giggle or a laugh or making a little story, right? Just seeing those little glimmering, glittering moments throughout the day, and touch points with them, with your kids. Hey, I really enjoyed when we were doing this and we were laughing. Oh, that was so fun, right? Because it's important for you to feel appreciated and for them to feel appreciated. And then for how do we make this long term? I was thinking, I think it starts with redefining success. And what does that mean? Because a successful mom is not the one who does it all, but the one who prioritizes love, connection, and personal well-being, right? Because if we're setting that as an example for our kids, gosh, we're giving them the whole treasure trove of, hey, when you grow up, this is a way to set boundaries, to say no, to really give yourself in when you're doing quality over quantity, right? And what a gift that could be. Another one's embracing your humanity, right? So recognize that the burnt out mom can't give her best self. So by caring for yourself, you're caring for your family too. It's like the whole airplane thing, right? It's like, moms, you gotta put on your mask before you put it on your kid, right? Because it's like, if you can't breathe, you're just not even gonna be there to help the kids, right? So you gotta make sure you're taking care of your well-being to be strong enough and healthy enough and be there to be able to help your kids. And so embracing that humanity and teaching that self-compassion by example. So kids learn by watching you, show that the mistakes are normal, self-care is important, it's okay to ask for help. I was thinking this idea of how kids really learn. Let's rewind. I think everybody learns, and we watch and we take in so much when we admire somebody, right? And our kids really admire us. If you think about, so if you went to like a billionaire's house, and I'm using finance as an example because often we define richness as part of success, right? So it'd be somebody you would possibly admire. So you go to a billionaire's house, you would probably be watching and soaking everything in. When we open the cabinet, what do they keep in their cabinets? How do they organize their laundry? Where do they have this? Why did they choose that? Maybe you'd ask lots of questions. Hey, how'd you figure this out? How'd you figure that out? What do you do this, right? We're watching this and we're in such admiration of it that we soak it all in. We want to know what's going on. We're watching it all, right? And I think kids admire you so much. They see you as the billionaire because they're like, hey, you know all the answers somehow. You know when the day starts, when to set the alarm, when to take things out of the oven, that things drip down, that you know all these things. And so kids admire us and watch us all the time. And so to your kids, you're the billionaire. You have all the answers. And so I think that also comes into teaching them that self-compassion and modeling and showing examples. Hey, really messed up today. This didn't work. let's go ahead and try again. My daughter and I were making noodles. I saw somebody making noodles and it looked so simple when they did it. And I was like, sure, we can do it. And at first we made it was such a mess. So I said, okay, you know what? Let's try again. It didn't work out the way we wanted to. Let's try again. Let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can work through it. And I think it's important for our kids to see that we don't get things right all the time. I did this with my daughter when she was a baby, and I'm doing it with Essington too. It's like if you have a toy and you set it down, most likely when you set a toy, you know how to balance it well enough on the carpet within fabric or on a sturdy thing without it falling. But when a kid tries it, it often falls. And so give them that chance, say, oh, you know, I tried to set it down, it fell. I tried to set it down, it fell. You know what, I'm trying to button my buttons, but it's tough. You know, it's like this hole or this hole. Is this, I'm trying to do my zipper, but it's tough. It's like, where does this go, right? And show them that little struggle, because often they just see us doing things right all the time. And it's so intimidating when you see somebody doing things right all the time. You're just like, wow, man, each time I try, that doesn't look like that. And so giving our kids opportunities to see us in situations where we're also struggling. Hey, I tried to do this, it really didn't work. Hey, I tried to do this, maybe I struggled with it a little bit. But I think it'll help us to be more gentle with ourselves and also show a great example for our kids of like, hey, we can do hard things, but things are hard, but we can do them, and let's work through them together. But I'd love to hear how you feel about mom guilt. I feel like often it's such a buzzword, but isn't necessarily defined, because I'm like, I just kept thinking like, why is it that all of us are feeling this way? And the guilt, why are we feeling bad about things that we often shouldn't even feel bad about? For me, it's like, why do I feel bad about taking a shower and taking time away when I'm already with my kids 15 hours a day, every single day? And at first I think, right, it starts because when they're babies and we're so worried about them, we can't leave them. So we're so worried. And so when do we let go of that worry? When are we okay with it? Hey, they're going to be all right sitting there and playing by themselves for 20 minutes. Like, you know, they're inside the home, they're safe. And so figuring that out, and what does that look like? I'd love to hear in the comments how you deal with it and what kind of problems, kind of things arise for you. And let's chit chat in there. All right, I hope you have a very good day, and then I'll see you later.